Good afternoon. This is Sandy Hicks with the Inside Story. And as always, I'm concerned about our community and personal welfare from a educational, physical, emotional, spiritual perspective. And today I have a couple of guests with me, and we're going to be talking about one of the critical issues that's happening in our communities and around the country today. And kind of sad, but I think because this is information that our community needs to have and be aware of, I thought it was important for us to talk about it today. And today, my guest first is Rhonda Ewing. And for Rhonda, this is really a little difficult day for her because today is the 2-month anniversary of the loss of her daughter. So, Rhonda, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your history here? You've been in Manchester how many years?
I've been here actually in New Hampshire for 22 years.
Okay.
22 years. My daughter, Joyce Ewing, she was, we moved here in 92. She was 6 months old and pretty much grew up in New Hampshire, Manchester area mainly, but we did kind of move down to the seacoast for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I understand your daughter graduated from Central High.
I have 3 graduates.
Oh, my goodness.
3 graduates from Central High. My oldest son, Joshua Ewing, and then there was Joyce, my middle child, my only girl, and then Johan just recently graduated in June of 2014. So.
Well, I'm one of those parents who's an alumnus, so to speak, of Central. Both my sons and my granddaughter went to Central. And probably if my great-granddaughter and granddaughter were still living here, they would be here, but they're in Houston, Texas. But my great-granddaughter's 15, so it'll be a generational thing.
Yes, it is.
I mentioned that today was the 2-month anniversary of your daughter's loss.
Yes, it is.
And I know this ought to be difficult for you to talk about, but I think one of the reasons you're here is because you want to share your story and your concerns as a parent and as someone who's become much more educated about this issue that we're talking about. And the issue we're talking about is the loss of life due to drug overdoses.
And the prevention of loss of life
and the
as
prevention,
well. Because I do believe that it's preventable.
It's a preventable. It's accidental death, but it's a preventable death.
It's a preventable death. And my daughter, just like any other young high school, she's free spirit. Joyce was, once you met her once, she's very unforgettable. I had a picture that I didn't bring. My goodness, I should have brought the picture with me.
That would have been nice.
It's in the room over there, but maybe I can sneak out and get it before we go off the air.
Okay. All right.
She was just a very free-spirited girl. I mean, tons of friends. She was a female, so of course it was a challenge raising her. I have 2 sons, and she was my only daughter, and I was very protective. And we had a really close, tight relationship. Me and my daughter, we bumped heads, of course. Mothers and daughters usually do. But me and Joyce, we shared secrets. She felt like I had a relationship with her that we could talk about anything.
Good communication.
Very great communication.
And that's so important with our young
very
people today.
Important, especially with the young females growing in this generation. It's really, because there's so many knots that you can't do with your children these days that...
Well, kids today, and as a person who's been around a few generations, and I've lived other places than here. I'm originally from Boston, and I lived in California in 3 times. So the reality for young people today is so very different over the generations.
The technology.
And young people have exposures to things that we would never have imagined at your age level.
Exactly.
And, so I can understand what you're talking about. It's quite challenging the minute they go out the door and start school. And even if you don't have some of the technology in your house today, they're exposed to it someplace else.
Libraries, schools, friends, the new iPhones and things of that nature, which of course she wanted. And she worked, she graduated, and after 18, we only have so much control.
Exactly.
So she really wanted to get out the house because of the rules, the regulations, and the demands that I did expect from my children, which I expected from all of my children, not just her, but a little more you know,
I think as mothers we're a little bit more protective
for
exactly.
our daughters.
Especially
And
a
we are
daughter.
for our sons in a but it's a
It's a
different kind of
different-
thing.
it is.
And woman to woman, I can experience what you're talking. I raised sons, and then I also had an adopted daughter, and I had nieces. So it's really different. I
It is,
understand that.
it is.
And I was raised also where you got to a certain age, you finished school. And either if you were continuing on to school and you lived home, you still had to abide by home rules.
You're in
And
my
most young
house,
people
yes.
want to set their own rules, and they struggle with house rules. My granddaughter, when she was a teenager at junior high level and high school level, battled with it a lot. Curfews and things like that. So I certainly understand that challenge.
So she
So
was
then when
really,
they get,
yeah,
they get old
she
enough,
was-
they decide I want to be out on my own, doing my own thing.
After graduation, she could not wait to be out of my control. It's so much, you know, so say so much. And I let her, you know, even when, you know, certain things, I was like, just check in, just check in, just check in. And probably about a year of her being out there, she'd come home, you know, stay for 2 weeks and regroup and go on back out until we had to move. I used to live at 452 Lake Ave. And actually, they just condemned and tore down the whole building. We were there for 5 years. So her room was missing. You know, she didn't have a room, and me and my son, you know, my younger son had to move. Of course, we downsized because I only had my younger son at the home with me. And she was struggling out there, but she was free, and she enjoyed, you know, being out there doing whatever she wanted, you know, struggled with jobs, didn't keep them long. And I started seeing certain signs of nonchalant in her personality, not really caring about certain things that when I was raising her, she really cared about. And you know, I'm listening and I'm watching her, and there were certain signs that, you know, made me become aware that something wasn't really right. Number one was the company she kept. It was this one young man that I just, from my spidey senses, I call it, started going off. And I did a little research. His mother was an RN, but he had a certain aura about him that I just wasn't feeling. So I'm questioning Joyce about him, and he's doing certain little things that made me very uncomfortable. Found out his mother was an RN, but he had kind of a twitch to him. And I was like, Joycey, what's going on? His mother's an RN, you know. Why is he, you know, twitching and things? Oh, mommy, that's just a tick, da-da-da-da, whatever. And real fast talking, and she stopped calling certain times, you know, hanging after meeting this guy. She seen that I didn't like him, so that means stay away from mom, you know. She don't like my boyfriend. After a while, you know, she stopped really coming over as much as she used to. And when she did come, she was awful tired, and the conversation wasn't as pleasant. And one day, one of my friends that, you know, used to be in the streets, I mean, we all have all types of friends, and came and told me that my daughter was doing heroin. Now, as a mother, there was this beautiful, beautiful young girl, my only daughter. I was like, no, you're lying. My daughter's not out there doing that, you know, because I didn't raise her that way. I mean, I raised my children in beautiful homes. They never had to share rooms. And, you know, I did the best I can as a LNA for 11 years, working my behind off, had houses, and, you know, normal mother things that I did as a single parent.
I think I'd like to interject at this point as a parent and as a, like I said, a grandparent and then a great-grandparent. I think about the things that we try to prepare them for in life when they're growing up. And as I said earlier, they have exposures today to things that we never even imagined. So we didn't have the conversations because we didn't have the information to have with our young people about drugs.
Exactly.
And we know today we hear about drugs. Drugs are a terrible thing. They're a scourge on our communities. But there's a side to drug usage that a lot of people are in denial about. One of it is prescription drugs. Well, we're hearing more and more
Opiates.
about the prescription drugs, but we're beginning to hear about the fact that they're able to take over the counter meds and do things with those. And so lots of times they're not aware of what, in fact, are in these drugs and what kind of effect they can have on them. I personally know of a couple of situations where a person only had one opportunity, one incident with a drug involvement, and it messed them up permanently. You know, and a lot of people don't want to think about that. And with young people, I think a lot of time their attitude is they go through that period of time where they think they're indispensable, and they hear these things that happen out there in the community to other people. It's not going to be them.
That's why I'm trying to give a little background.
And that's why I wanted you to do that, because you're telling about the history of a young person who got involved and the behaviors that began to show.
Exactly.
But she also was someone that was no longer in your house, and so the opportunities
as
all
far
of a sudden,
as society, yes,
in society,
she's grown.
now you have someone from the outside suggesting that your child is doing something you can't even imagine.
I'm not I've seen it. I've had friends. I know the signs. I'm not a street person, but I'm streetwise. I've been out there. I've been young before. I just try to look back on certain signs and things that, like I said, my spidey sense tells me. Long sleeves in the summertime, you know, sleepiness, bending over, cramping, because heroin is a physical addiction.
Absolutely.
It's a physical
And
addiction.
heroin's been around a long, long time.
Long time.
I can remember in the 50s, I grew up in Boston, and I was a lot of opportunities to have. I had a couple of relatives who were police officers, and I knew a couple of people who ended up doing undercover work, so they would try and catch the dealers. And it just seemed like, well, you know, smoking pot was one thing, but heroin? Oh my God, we knew heroin was like the killer. And so no one dealt with it for the most part. But there were people, as you said, that you did know that did do it, who had lost their lives. So here we are now in 2014.
2014.
And it's an epidemic around the country.
Around the country. The younger generation seem to be, you know, because they don't really know what we know about
They don't have the
drug.
histories.
They don't have the histories. They don't know that. Well, my daughter knew that I had a father and an uncle, and someone has someone in their family that does drugs. So let's just keep it real. And when I asked her about it, what really scared me is that she told me she liked the high. And that from that point on, I became frantic. I started thinking. I says, okay, do you want to stop? Yes, Mommy, I do want to stop. Of course, she's going to tell me what I want to hear.
Exactly.
But as I sought to go get help, there was none available. My daughter, she wasn't working. There was no health insurance. She couldn't have been covered under mine because she was now 20 years old. And I believe we searched for 2 weeks I would bring her to hospitals and hoping that they would keep her because of the high level of heroin in her system. No, there was just, we ran into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and she wasn't a minor, so I could not keep her at my home. I could not keep her against her will. If she wanted to go, she had a right to go. You know, I've always seemed to let my children make their own decisions, but you will suffer the consequences of those decisions that you made. That's something that I did educate my children on, you know. Every action has a reaction. And the little bit of knowledge that I did have on heroin, I gave to my daughter. Because if you continue using, it's death or prison. That's the final.
Those are the two choices.
Those are the two choices you have. Either you get help or death or prison.
The information that you knew about heroin, were you as aware at the time that there are treatments out there for people who are heroin addicts that are helpful?
There are treatments, but if you're low income, you have no vehicle, you have no way of getting to those treatments, what is one to do? I mean,
I think we've heard about people who are in the public life, so to speak, who have died over the last few years, and it just come up that they were addicts. And these were people who had access to money, and they had access to care. And it still didn't, in the final end, make the difference. But absolutely, when in fact you want to get help and you keep looking and there's nothing available because of your circumstances.
Because of your circumstances.
And we're talking about a drug situation, but the other side of it is there are other things that are going on in our communities around medical care where people run across the same kind of roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
Our mental health situation for those who maybe would try and get some mental health care
Mm-hmm.
is limited,
Mm-hmm.
and as to the kind of supports and help. And as you said, you would have liked to have seen her go someplace where she could get care, so she would be in a confined situation.
When she
and that
requested
when
it.
she requested it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet she wasn't able to do that.
We were stopped. So, you know, my parent, my daughter, my mother. I named my daughter after my mother, Joyce Ewing. So she, you know, said, well, bring her down to Boston. You know, she got a job. She was away from her friends, her boyfriend, around, you know, doing very well. And her boyfriend was in jail. I was, yeah.
Yeah, please. Can I just a second? I think there might be a call on hold. Let's see if it's still there.
Okay.
Hello? Trying to hear. Is there still a call waiting?
Yes, waiting.
Okay, can you go ahead? We'll take the call now.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. You
Who
have
am I
a
speaking with?
you have a comment?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you're on the air. You have a comment or a question?
Yes, actually, I might be a little behind. I was trying to watch it on the streamline.
Yes.
I just wanted to send my condolences to Miss Ewing regarding her daughter. And I think it's really sad that, you know, in this day and age, you know, you have a young person, your son or your daughter, who's in trouble with drugs and alcohol, and there's no place where they can go. You know, and you know, being a mom, that's a very scary thing to me.
Absolutely. And that's part of the critical thing in our community we need to address. We can't go around with our head in the sand. We're losing more and more of our young people who are our future. And as I said, this kind of need is there, not just for the drugs. It's there for a lot of other medical concerns. But today our focus is on this issue. So thank you for calling.
Exactly. And, you know, and education is a big piece of this.
Absolutely.
You know, I like I said, I was watching the streamline, so I feel like I'm a little behind on what you guys are talking about. But I just wanted to say also, actually it's a question for Miss Ewing. When you were out there looking for help, did anyone, okay, so if they said there was no help, was there any direction to where you could go?
There were beds available, but
Thank
the
you.
wait for the beds were 3 to 4 months in, and it
And
took a while.
that's an issue when we're talking about something this critical, because its time is of the essence, especially
As
with
soon
an
as they
addicted
request,
kind of
yes.
personality. When they request it is when you need to be able to get them the treatment, because if you can't get it to them right away, then of course the addiction is going to take hold,
over.
and then you're
Exactly.
back again
Exactly.
trying to tread water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very small window.
Yes.
So, well, we have another guest with us, and this is, why don't you introduce yourself and give it a little background?
Well, my name is Chuck Novak. I've been working in the addiction field here in Manchester for 5 years now, 10 years. I've been involved in the addiction field in Manchester for the last 10 years. And I've started the group Smart Recovery is a secular version of what's known as programs like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous to try to make that self-help, mutual help available in the city. And doing what we can to kind of spread the word about naloxone and trying to
That's
get that
what I didn't
approved.
get to
Right.
let you know that there is a prevention to this overdose, which eventually caused my daughter to pass. And if I would have known about naloxone prior, and if it was available,
There again is that piece of education that we don't have, and because most parents think it's not an issue we're going to have to deal with. Once you're in it, you're frantic, you're trying to get help, you're trying to save your child, and then trying to get information about what's the best direction to go in. First thing we try to get the kind of
rehabilitation, right.
situation, and have them be somewhere where they're safe and protected, so they're not going to be drawn in back in the streets.
Mhm.
But the other side of it is, what kind of treatment are they getting even then? And if they can't be in a housing situation, what do you do on the outside? Is there something available for a parent or someone?
Exactly.
Well, that's what Rhonda and I have been
And
talking
so
a lot
that's-
about
that's
this
where
week.
you come in with. You have a lot of good background information, I believe. That
Yes,
there
we
is a
do.
drug available.
There is a drug available. It's not a new drug. It's widely available in every other New England state.
Every other New England state.
But New Hampshire doesn't even allow the police officers to carry the naloxone. Only EMTs and paramedics are allowed to have it and administer it now.
Do we have any history as to why there's been resistance to that? Because it seems to me like anything else, we talk about prevention so much, and granted, it's not going to prevent the person from having the addiction, but if it's going to do something to prevent them
Save
from
a
leaving their
life.
What
life.
Rhonda and I have been
is
saying
what-
this week is the first step in treatment should be keep them alive.
Keep them
So that
alive,
if
and
they
otherwise
choose
you can't
to
right, exactly.
change,
Right,
they
'cause-
will be alive to change it. I
Mhm.
mean,
Because
The
we're not going to
behaviors.
get them to just stop by telling them no. Just say no hasn't worked, and it's not
No.
going to keep working.
no, it's not. But
Um,
that's our goal.
keep them
actually,
alive
is to-
first.
And I think when we look at other kinds of care, we talk about methadone care, but in
And-
my sense, methadone is transferring one addiction to another in a
But-
sense.
But if I
But
can,
it does give you time
Yes.
to do something with that person and to help with the rehab in the mental thinking.
and it reduces the harm, and for some people, the methadone is something that they can stay with. You know, I once
Not everybody can use it though.
No, and it's not the answer for everyone. And there's Suboxone is another medication that's
Yes, it
available for
is.
people, but there
it's
are restrictions on
supplement.
it,
It's a supplement.
and it's a substitute.
substitute.
It's a
Right.
substitute, but they do work for some people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we need to have every option, and every option should be made
Absolutely.
available to people. The number one goal, though, should be keep them alive, because once they're dead, they don't. So what are some of the
There are no
objections?
chances,
Right. For example, one of the arguments against naloxone would be that it wrecks their high, so the person they might get angry when you save their life because you wrecked their high.
And they may not have another any more money to go get another. And
But the alternative is a permanent solution. It's death. You're not going to. So if they hit me, okay, I can live with that. We can get over that issue pretty short-lived.
So you're saying that one of the side effects could be their physical reaction
After
because they
the
don't
fact.
have the high.
Right. So when they get returned, because it's an instant return, what it is basically like an EpiPen. It's
Yes.
as safe as an EpiPen or a nasal spray.
Or
There's two different administrations, and what it does is it's a opioid antagonist. So it knocks the opiate, be it heroin or fentanyl or oxycodone or whatever. The synthetic opiates are actually more dangerous than the heroin because they're designed to stick to the receptors better.
Right.
Because this is a synthetic, it's able to push those out and reverse the effects of an overdose
remind you
immediately.
to breathe, remind you to wake you up.
Because that's how you overdose. Is basically your body goes to sleep. Your
Shuts
heart
down.
and your heart and
Like-
your lungs just
Shut down.
go to sleep. Yeah. So it reverses it instantly.
It's almost a shock reaction.
And there's no abuse potential. Like I said, a person who's high on an opioid is going to run if they know you have naloxone. They're going to run as fast as they can from you.
That's the fear as well. They're
There's-
saying
yeah.
that we're gonna, if this was available, that we're giving the addicts, go and get as high as you want because now you have your naloxone, which is not true.
My analogy for that is that we should take seatbelts out of cars then, because it only encourages
Yeah,
people
we-
to drive
we can
fast.
do a lot of things. There's always the opposite side that someone can take.
Yeah.
Now, this is a drug that's been available for how many years?
They've been using this medication for over 40 years. It's only last year when it became available, and I guess the name is Evizio. That's the take home for parents. They made it even more easy for lay people to be able to administer it.
Now, do you have much history about how it's been used in other states?
Well, yes, and it's especially like in New England. New England has been the governor of Vermont. He dedicated his entire State of the Union address to the heroin epidemic, and they pushed for increasing the access. Like I said, every state in New England now has increased the access to naloxone. One of the first cities to bring naloxone to the police officers was in Quincy, and there's some really good
Quincy,
articles.
Mass.
Quincy, Mass.
Massachusetts.
And there's
I'm
some,
from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
That's why
I'm from Mass
I'm waiting.
as well.
I want you to share that information.
there's
because it
some
is information
really
I'm somewhat aware of.
and you know what's really great about that article is that there was some perspectives from the police officers, and they said not only were they able to save lives from people, but it helped create a better relationship between the drug users and the police. Part of the naloxone, when we get this approved for more wide access, is that there's a Good Samaritan law that has to go with this. So that means that if you come across somebody who's overdosing, you don't have to worry about the police making an arrest. They should be there to serve and protect. They should be there to save lives first, not arrest. You hear police say, we can't arrest our way out of here, but still they keep arresting people.
Right.
Where's the
And
alternatives?
when young people are out and an incident happens, the first thing the kids do is they run. They don't want to be caught up in it.
And
they're
that's
panicked.
another-
They want the person to get help, and
Right.
they may call 911, but they're going to basically run. So the first responders need to be able to administer something
Are
that's
the
right at that
parents.
point. Yes.
Are the person you're getting high with,
Some-
are the
that's
uncles,
the other
the
thing.
brothers, the
Right.
kids. It's widespread, and shame kills. And not everybody wants to come out and say,
I'm
my
having this
daughter's a
problem.
heroin
Exactly.
user, or my dad, or my mom. But knowledge is power. There's power in people, and
Well, what you said is so interesting about a parent. I think about today we hear nice little stories about a young person whose parent was having a heart attack or something, and they were able to call 911 because they knew 911 would get them help and assistance.
Right.
We're talking about the same kind of situation.
exactly.
I don't think most people will generally think of it that way, but that's exactly the same kind of thing.
It is.
To be able to immediately
Save a
respond
life.
instead of run.
Instead of
Panicking.
and running, you have your naloxone on hand. A mother who knows that their daughter, or suspect that their daughter or their child or their son or their brother or their uncle of using this drug, I would like to, let them know that shame kills. And if you do not try to get your help, death or prison is the only two options that